Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Women in Theater podcast. We're your hosts, Haley Goldenberg
and Amy Andrews. Grab a cozy beverage and join us as we talk to women and gender-expansive folks about their experiences at the intersection of womanhood and theater.
On the pod, we cultivate open conversations across identities and professional roles.
We look for opportunities to support one another in growing our careers.
And we pool our collective wisdom to build the equitable theatrical spaces of the future. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
It's Sleepy Girl Hour up here in Canada.
Is it? It's a rainy day. That makes it Sleepy Girl Hour here too.
Yeah, it's sleepy. With the sleepy being said, let's dive into roses and thorns. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. My rose is, so last weekend I had the absolute pleasure of co-producing this cabaret called Collective Transformation, New Works from the Musical Theater Writing Collective. And it was such an experience. It was an evening of new musical theater. My collaborator, Julie, we're going to talk with today, she and I had a song in the show as well. So I had a producer hat and a writer hat on. They looked very cute together. And the best part is it was a cabaret fundraiser for the Transgender Law Center. So we had this incredible, amazing group of transgender and non-binary artists, performers, and musicians, and writers, and producers. And it was just like the most gorgeous night that was celebrating gender diversity and new musical theater. And it was so much work, and it was a dream to see it all come together. I'm really proud of that work, and that is like a rose that is just going to keep on rosing, I think. Yay. My thorn this week is like a big picture thorn. You know, like when those big picture problems like all of a sudden feel personal to you. Right now, I'm feeling that way about the way that our society not only devalues art, but like at this point, at this particular moment in history, is like actively seeking to undermine art and turn it into political propaganda. That's a thing that has been really like hitting home on a very personal level for me this week. Yeah. And I just like sometimes want to take people and shake them and be like, what is wrong with you that you don't value art and beauty like as essential elements of humanity? Like it just does not compute and makes me a little wild. That's my thorn. What about you, Haley?
Yeah, I've been saying all season that the state of the world is my thorn. It feels
and it
relevant
continued
today.
To be. Yeah.
It continues to be real. My thorn. I think like specifically ableism is a thorn. Like just as somebody with an invisible illness, dealing with things that are hard to explain to people, sometimes like lesser known mental health challenges, and how that plays in with the state of the world at the moment is scary. Yeah, it's just weighing me down this week, and just knowing that our society is like not set up to support disabled folks, not meant to support women right now, people with uteruses. It sucks. So I'm feeling it. It hurts. Like
it does. Yeah.
It hurts, and I keep asking myself, like, how is anybody standing right now? Like, how is anybody coping? It's just really hard. So, not to be too heavy, listeners, but that's where I am right now.
Yeah, and I want to remind you, listeners, that, like, literally the act of coping is in itself a form of resistance. And, like, that's not always easy, but it's also important.
And also, it's
to
okay
remember.
If you're not coping today.
Yeah,
like, you're allowed to have
100%. Yeah.
And then my rose is Amy and I recently did our very first official community event in person at my apartment. And it was so amazing to gather so many women and gender expansive folks in a room together. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about community and the importance of community. And it just felt like a really real representation of what can happen when you bring folks into a room together. And it goes back to why Amy and I started this project in the first place, of the idea of getting women and gender expansive folks in a room together and seeing what kind of change we could make by being in space together and talking to one another and having transparency about resources and things that we want to change and how we might go about changing them, and share ideas and wisdom and everything. So I'm really proud of that.
It was such a magical event. I just want to send a shout out to everybody who came, everybody who showed up and made the event like such an incredibly special night. It was so very cool to have all of us come together and be able to share those really important conversations. So thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for being with us. It really means the world. Well, Amy, do you want to introduce who we're going to be speaking to today? Because I know she's a really big person in your world.
Yes, I would love to. Oh my gosh. Listeners, today we are speaking with Julie Richardson, who is my fabulous collaborator on To the Lighthouse, which is the show we're currently writing. Julie is incredible. Julie does it all. Julie is a composer and an orchestrator. And she is also a mechanical engineer. She's also an incredible mama. I love our collaboration so much, and I think she's phenomenal, and I can't wait to dig into her thoughts about creative work and balancing all those roles that she has. I think she's brilliant, and I'm so excited for y'all to meet her.
Let's talk to Julie.
Yeah, let's do it. But first, for Women's History Month, we've teamed up with Expand the Canon to bring you a series of playwrights you should know about.
This week's playwright you should know about is Lesia Yunkrenka. Lesia Yunkrenka was a Ukrainian writer, translator, and activist. During her childhood, her mother submitted Yunkrenka's work to literary journals under the pseudonym Lesia Yukrenka, meaning approximately Ukrainian woman, to protect her identity in the wake of suppression of the Ukrainian language under Russification. Yukrenka was a devoted Marxist and remained politically opposed to Russian Tsarism for her entire career. Her revolutionary activities and controversial publications led to her arrest in 1907, and she remained under Tsarist watch for the remaining 6 years of her life. She died in 1913, leaving behind an impressive portfolio of work and a legacy of activism that cemented her as one of the most significant literary figures in modern Ukrainian history. She is featured on the 200 hryvnia banknote. If you've always wished you could see Lady Macbeth take on Don Juan, check out her play The Stone Host, written in 1912. Learn more about the play and Yukrenka on This Is a Classic, a podcast by Expand the Canon.
Hello, beautiful people. Julie, welcome to Women in Theater.
Hi, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay, thank you for being here. To get us started, can you please share your pronouns and tell us a little bit about what you do in theater?
Yeah, my pronouns are she, her, and I am a composer and orchestrator.
Fabulous. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about something that's inspiring you right now?
Yeah, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I got to see a new show, a world premiere of a play up here in the Boston area, which combined all of my most favorite things. This play was called Space, and it was about the American women in aviation and space from like the dawn of aviation up to today and into the future. And it was sort of like this cross-time collection of, I think it was Bessie Coleman.
Come on, Bessie Coleman. I love Bessie
right?
Coleman.
Yeah, like up through like Sally Ride, Mae Jemison, like all of these like very awesome folks. It combined feminism and science and like a little bit of queerness, and it was just so good. It's by L.M. Feldman and Larissa Lurie, and it was a world premiere with the Central Square Theater. They do an annual Women in Science production, and this was their annual production. It was amazing, and I loved it, and it makes me want to write a musical about women in science.
Yay!
Okay, well, when the two of you work on that musical about women in science, please call me and I'll direct it.
You
okay?
know it.
Amazing.
You know it.
Make that happen. Okay. Fabulous. Well, before we get into the meat of this interview, we're going to get started with a fun little flash round of questions. The first question is, if you were an animal, what would you be?
I've always wanted to be able to fly. And so the first thing that comes to mind is a bird. And I think that it would be whatever bird can fly the fastest so I can get back and forth between New York and Boston as fast as possible.
Oh, what a good answer. Fast flying bird. Julie,
Yes.
What is your weirdest hobby?
Probably pumpkin carving. This is something that I picked up in college just for fun. There was like a pumpkin carving contest happening in our dorm, and I decided that to try to win the contest, I was going to carve the face of our RA who is judging the contest. He did not pick my pumpkin, but it like got me excited about creating my own patterns. And so like just taking a picture in Photoshop and turning it into a pattern And I think my favorite carving that I've done was one of Ruth Bader Ginsburg shortly after she passed. So
Obsessed.
it's very fun.
Obsessed.
There are pictures of your pumpkin carving on your website, right, Julie?
There are, yeah. I made a video, like a time lapse of me carving that one. That was fun.
Nice.
Very good. Julie, what quote or mantra is speaking to you right now?
Probably consume less, create more. I feel like
Mm.
I'm constantly having to remind myself of that.
That's
Very good.
really very resonant right now. Yes,
Mhm.
agreed.
Yep.
Julie, what is your favorite musical?
This is so hard.
Yes.
But I think it has to be Wicked. It's just so good.
Good, it's
For
good,
Good
you
is
know?
my right.
Yeah.
For Good is like my top favorite musical theater song
Such a
ever.
good
Like it just
song.
gets me every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just speaks to those relationships between women in such a way that like
Yeah.
nothing else does.
Why
So,
aren't there more
yeah.
musicals with like a powerful like female friendship at the center? There need to be more of
Why
those.
aren't there?
You know,
Yeah.
maybe the patriarchy, you know?
Maybe we should
Mm.
write them.
I
Maybe
think
we
so.
are writing them. Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Hey, if it doesn't exist, write it yourself.
absolutely.
Julie, what's your song of the moment?
My song of the moment, because I am like deep into writing this like elaborate Act One finale, I have been listening to the Tonight Quintet from West Side Story and like
Obsessed.
really like looking at like how it's built and just grabbing ideas for structure. And I love that. So that's a great one.
For our listeners who are composers, that's like a really good trick. I'm sure most of you know this, but you know, if you're feeling stuck with something, find like a reference song that you can go deep dive into as a way to help you. Well, thank you so much for playing along with our flash round, Julie. Could you tell us and our listeners a little bit about how you came to your field and creative work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my start in music like back in 4th grade as like a violinist. Never really like thought about the possibility of writing music until I got to college. I took a music theory class just because we were required to take a bunch of different kinds of humanities classes. And I was like, music theory sounds fun. And we had an assignment to write a piece of music. And it just like blew my mind that there were like structural rules about how music works and how to put it together. I've always been a techie kind of a person. I'm a mechanical engineer by day. And so like knowing how to put together music like was really instructive to me. And at the end of that class, I was like, I really want to write more music. What kind of music do I like? I like musical theater. I should write a musical. And embarked on finding some fellow folks in the Musical Theater Guild. We ended up writing a show together within the span of 1 year. We like conceived of the idea to write a musical about undergraduate life at MIT and then put it on. And it was like one of the most incredible experiences. Since then, I took sort of a winding path through some other creative disciplines. I did sound design, music direction, even had a stint with like a photography and videography side business before finding my way back to like writing musical theater is really what I want to be focusing on right now. And then, so a couple years ago, I started like finding fellow musical theater folks online. And that is how I found my lovely collaborator, Amy Andrews, with whom I'm currently writing our musical To the Lighthouse. So
Woohoo.
long
Okay,
journey.
well, since I have both of you here, I want to go back to the part of this where you're also a mechanical engineer because that's fascinating.
Yeah.
But since you just mentioned Amy and your collaboration, can you two talk a little bit about what you're making together and what you love about collaborating?
Yeah.
Yes.
So after Amy and I took an online musical theater writing class together, shout out Musical Theater Writing Collective and Michael Ratty.
Mhm. We love you.
We just like really clicked in the song that we were paired on together. And Amy suggested we do a collaboration and was like, hey, I've been thinking about writing an adaptation of Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. Are you interested? And she sent me a copy of the book. And I read through it, and there's just such rich character material in that book and really awesome themes of legacy and how we leave our mark in the world that I was really excited to explore. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled that Amy and I have been able to work on that for the last 2 years. I'm doing music and Amy's doing book and lyrics. Do you want to add anything, Amy?
Yeah, I want to shout out to the very first song that we wrote together, which was a character establishment song for Alice in Alice in Wonderland. And it was a really cute song that I still love and that still gets stuck in my head sometimes. And yeah, in terms of what I love about our collaboration, I'm usually the like more organized person in a collaboration, which is wonderful and can also be a burden at times. And like Julie puts my organizational skills to shame. Like Julie is just
I don't know if that's
this
true.
this
I feel like
current
we're both organized.
we are both very organized, which makes it an
That's
amazing
true.
collaborative experience. Yeah, like for this Act 1 finale that we are in the midst of writing right now, Julie came to me 2 weeks ago and was like, here's this spreadsheet that breaks down all of the different characters and all of the different, melodic ideas and hooks and like the dramatic work that each of them is doing and how they all come together throughout the song. And it is the most like, if you're a spreadsheet person, it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my whole life. This spreadsheet about
Shout
our
out to the
Joy
spreadsheet
finale.
girlies around here.
Oh my gosh.
Okay?
For real.
We
My
are, we
brain,
know you, we love you, we are you.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brain might as well be a spreadsheet.
I love
And
it.
like in the
Well,
best
so
way.
speaking
In
of
the best
spreadsheet,
way.
oh sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, please speak about spreadsheets.
I was gonna just say, speaking of spreadsheets, I feel like that's a good segue to talk about your mechanical engineering and how you balance these two
Yeah.
careers. Talk to
Yeah.
me about how you do that. That's so wild. You have these two huge careers next to each other. What's that like?
Yeah, it is wild. I will say that like acknowledging a privilege that I have is I've found a company that like very much wants its employees to have work-life balance. And so like I am able to like know that the time outside of my work is my time or my family time, you know. And so the way that I have managed to handle all of this is like I wake up at 6 a.m., have my morning routine, and then 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. is my writing time. And I try as best as I can to erect fences around it, make sure that things don't encroach on it. And, of course, life things happen, but in general, it works out pretty well. And with just that 1 hour a day over the last 2 years, we've managed to we're more than 60% of the way through the score and have had a couple of Zoom readings and all of that, reworked the synopsis a couple of times. And so I'm really proud of that, like being able to consistently sit down and put that in. And, you know, it certainly helps. This sort of is a segue into like balancing with being a parent. So I have a 2.5-year-old, and like that's also
Wait,
like
just stop down for a second so the listeners can take a deep breath and take that in. That you are not only a musical career composer, but you are a mechanical engineer and you're a mom. So just take that in, listeners, for a sec, because I feel like I need that to wash over all of you. It is over me. Anyway, go on.
many things. I don't always get the sleep that I need to, but it is, in the time that my daughter was a newborn and I wasn't really doing any creative outlet, I found myself like really lost and like I didn't really know who I was. And I was like, am I even a composer anymore? So it was really important for me to find a way to get that back and make sure that I was doing it on a regular basis because it's important for my mental health. And I also want to model for my daughter that it is important to like take time for yourself to do the things that matter to you creatively.
Yeah. As the mother of a daughter too, I feel exactly the same way. Like the way that we are able to model for our kids pursuing our passions and making our art and telling our stories, especially in this wild world we're living in right now, it is so important to teach our children and particularly our daughters to be able to do that for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, both of you. That's
Thank you.
Julie, I want to ask you about your creative mission for your work. If you had to put a name to it, what would you say that would be?
I really love telling stories about people who are like finding their power in like places that people don't expect them to. So like women who are succeeding in science or who want to be artists in 1910 in a world that doesn't want them to be an artist and wants them to just be a mom. Like that's something that I really love. And I love bringing bringing characters to the forefront who historically have not had the center stage time, particularly as a queer woman. That's something like women and queer stories. Those are things that I really love to tell and hope to be able to tell more of them as my career goes on.
Fabulous. Very cool. Well, that is a perfect segue into talking about womanhood. So let's go there. Can you talk to us a little bit about how womanhood fits into your identity and how all of that comes together to impact your theatrical work?
Yeah. Womanhood's an interesting topic. I have always been a person who kind of defies some of the gender norms that were being thrust upon me in terms of like not wanting to wear, frilly dresses or, act certain ways. I love being able to redefine like what the boundaries of womanhood is and sort of like expand that and show that like there are so many different ways to be a woman and all of them are okay. So that's something that is very meaningful to me. The second part of your question was about,
How womanhood and gender, if at all, impacts your theatrical work.
yeah, certainly in the stories that I choose to tell, and maybe certainly the lens through which we tell them. I think it was actually something I heard from Amy at one point that like writers have the power to create the world in a way that we want to see it. So like the way that you talk about a subject or, treat it in your work can illuminate like for the viewers like, "Oh, the world could be like that. Why isn't it like that? Let's make it like that."
Yeah, I love that you said that. That's something that I feel really strongly about in storytelling also. There's so many different things that stories can do. We can look at the past and what was, but we can also do this beautiful thing of illuminating a potential future that we want to see, or just invite audiences to see things in a different way. Yeah, that's something I think a lot about in my writing as well.
Very good stuff.
So Julie, speaking of changes that we can create via theater, I want to ask you about, if you could make one change to the theater industry, what would it be and why?
Yeah. I think that there would be such value and power in like shifting who are essentially the gatekeepers of what gets shown in New York. Like traditionally and historically, there have been like a certain small subset of, people of a narrow demographic making those choices and with the money. I've seen evidence that there are like smaller production houses focused on more diverse types of stories these days. And I think that's really awesome. So like it would be like identities of who are the producers and then what kinds of stories are they elevating. But also going along with that, like you also really need funding in order to have those smaller producers be able to bring those things up. I know you said one thing, that's two things. More funding for the
No,
arts.
go off, go off. Yeah.
We're here
More
for
funding
it.
for the arts. Yeah, yeah. Certainly that's a bit of a challenge in this country right now. Things not going in that direction, but hopefully we'll get there in the future. More funding for the arts.
I think
Um
zooming out too,
yeah.
to say like more funding for the arts goes back to something we talk about a lot over here, which is making sure that society values art as being essential.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are other countries that do value art more as a society and will put their money where their mouth is. And so if we look to those models, how can we bring that over to America and make it
Yeah.
more a priority?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to drawing, like very explicitly drawing the links about what art does for our society, like the value that it has. And I feel like we often make those points as the social value of the arts, like the kind of people and the kind of society that it helps to build. But I think fortunately or unfortunately in today's landscape, we need to start making more of a connection between like the economic impact that art can have as well, because both are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's making you think about what Reese Witherspoon did with Hello Sunshine, and her company, because her big thing was using the data of like how women's stories do actually in a financial sense move the needle, and she's been so successful. So I think it just goes to show that these stories are what people want to see.
Yeah, Reese Witherspoon, that's a great example. Like someone who took it upon themselves to use their position of power to like create a new gateway where once there was not one.
For sure.
Yay.
Julie, could you talk a bit about what's your ideal space in which to create theater? I know you're really passionate about finding a creative community. Do you want to talk about what that looks like in your life?
Yeah. Yeah, bringing this back a little bit to the musical theater writing collective. This was something that was like really a game changer for me in terms of how I think about my theater writing, like how motivated I am on a day-to-day basis to like continue to create things. There's just so much power and value in finding a group of people who are all really excited about making stuff and then like getting together and sharing it with each other. And if you could particularly find a group that you could be like pretty consistent with, where like they start to know your body of work and can provide more specific feedback and be like, oh, hey, this song reminds me of this other song of yours. That's happened in writing groups and with Amy too, where she's like, oh, I love the way you like drew on this theme from this song. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Good catch. So like having this creative community to bounce ideas off of.
You're back to what you're already doing so that you can make it even more intentional and make your art yours,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like thinking even beyond the musical theater writing collective, like the times in my life that I felt most excited are the ones where like there's just this like palpable energy of like a group that's really excited about making stuff. Like as an undergrad at MIT, like I felt that too. Even though the kinds of things that everyone was making were like so different. You would just see someone like really, really working hard on building a roller coaster in their like quad of their dorm and like, you'd be like really excited about it and like fired up about, going to make something of your own, even if it was not a roller coaster in the quad of your dorm. So
yeah, that group energy. Julie, you and I were talking earlier this week about the production process and how exciting it is to get a group of people together and collaborate on a show. And so often as writers, we're like in our little, in our little houses or coffee shops writing in isolation or just with one or two collaborators. And it's exciting to get to that point where we're all coming together. So the ways that we can mimic that process as writers, like to come together in a group of writers, it's really special and magical.
Yes, the shouting into the void of, will anyone ever see this? Like this thing that's meant to employ so many people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's such a long development process that like if you were doing it on your own, it would require like superhuman amounts of faith that it will ever pay off. But like if you're in a group, you can like cheer each other on. And then like you can also be so excited when like your fellow writers projects like make and hit milestones. And it's like another element of being able to get excited about progress is like seeing their progress too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love all of that. Yeah, community is so crucial, I feel like, to what we do.
Yeah.
It really is.
Cool. Julie, I want to ask you about how you think about cultivating your creative practice, because I know that that's so important to you. And you already spoke a little bit about the, like, that hour that's sacred to get your writing work done. And so I'm just curious if you have any further thoughts on cultivating the creative practice and how you maintain that when life gets crazy and all of that stuff.
Yeah, we already talked about like the time blocking element of it, basically like setting aside a time to make it happen. There's a book that I have listened to that I like often think about in terms of like creating a life that's sustainable to create a creative practice, which is called Make Time. And it's about managing your time, attention, and your energy. So like, even if you have all the time in the world, you can't really make progress on something if you don't have focused attention or the energy to do so. And I'm constantly like working to try to like maintain those things. Particularly the energy one is the challenging one with a full-time job and a kiddo. Just like getting to sleep on time is like that would be the great thing. Like if I could get enough sleep, I would have more energy, in the mornings. And so just trying to balance those kinds of things. But yeah, like finding ways to boost your energy throughout the day, like, all of the classic ones, eating right, some time to move your body. And even if you like can't have any like significant exercise, like just taking a 10-minute walk at lunch or something. Like I always find that those things are a great pick me up. So even though they don't seem like they would be part of a creative practice, it's all in support of it. It's like designing your life in a way that you can do all of those things is something that I find really fascinating. As an engineer, I'm like, oh, life is just another design project.
Right. How do we optimize it?
I love
Yeah,
that.
No,
exactly.
but I think I really love about you, Julie, is how intentional you are about creating those systems for yourself to support your creativity. I think it's really, really admirable.
Thank you. It's
I want to be
always an
you when I grow
experiment.
up. Yeah.
Aw, well, I want to be you when I grow up.
Oh, well, look at that.
This is so cute. So I just want to ask you one more question, Julie, because we want to respect your time, and time is very important in your life. So what are you most proud of in your life and in your creative work so far?
I'm most proud of, first and foremost, my family. I have a fabulous wife and a fabulous daughter, and they are my rock. But beyond that, I'm proud of my creative practice, like being able to like I have not always been a person who is consistent about sitting down and writing. And so like this is sort of like something that I've come to in the last couple of years. Frankly, being a mom kind of helped because I really, really have to be intentional about it. And then also like my collaborations and my like creative community. Like that's also something I'm really proud of, having built things that I didn't know I was missing in my life, and then now I have them, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah.
love that.
So
I
good.
love that.
Julie, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel at Finishing the Score where you can follow along with my songwriting journey and some things that I'm learning along the way. Also on Instagram at Finishing the Score. And you can also find my website, www.jhrichardson.com, where it's kind of like a whole collection of the things that I do, including that pumpkin carving video that I mentioned earlier.
Yay.
Obsessed. Go watch the pumpkin carving video, listeners. Thank you so much
So
for being here
exciting.
with us, Julie.
Thank you,
You're
Julie.
a delight. We are so grateful that you are a part of this community and looking forward to sharing your wisdom with all the listeners.
Aw.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends. What a lovely time spending with you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thanks, you
Bye.
too. Bye. Yay.
That was so great. I love Julie.
Me too. She's the best.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, but you get Julie all the time. I don't get Julie all the
I
time.
know. I'm really lucky.
The spreadsheet of her brain is like very admirable. And I also love like that she's so creative and then so like organized and in
Yeah.
touch with the logic side. It's awesome.
Yeah. Her right brain, left brain balance is wild. It's so good.
Yeah, so I love so much about that interview, but I think the idea around cultivating a creative practice and like keeping that promise to yourself and how much you can get accomplished with just 1 hour every day, like that is really sitting with me.
Yeah. And Julie is so disciplined about that hour. Like the way that she continues to keep this project moving forward just through an hour a day. It's incredible. And I so appreciate it. Yeah. I also loved the conversation that we had about creative community and just how that can support us as writers and as theater makers. I love that. And I know that's a value that all three of us really share.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, I think that's time that we uplift the people who inspire us. I've been inspired a lot today by you and Julie already, but do you have a trailblazer of the week?
Yes. So my trailblazer of the week this week is Molly Marinick, who is a dramaturg that I have had the pleasure of connecting with over the last few months. We connected kind of randomly. Well, no, kind of randomly. We connected through a cold email I sent out. So shout out to the cold email listeners. But Molly and I
think we have a shout out to that on every episode of this.
I think we do,
of this
as
season,
we
and that's
should.
okay. And that's okay,
Yeah.
as it should be.
Yeah, so Molly and I have been having really interesting conversations for the last couple of months about submission opportunities for musical theater writers and the gaps that exist in that world. And Molly is doing this amazing work building this thing called The Bridge that is creating opportunities, submission opportunities for mid-career, mid-process musical theater writers to further develop their work. And the way that she's going about it is so cool. She's being so intentional in having a lot of conversations with writers and producing organizations and stakeholders about what's working, what's not working, what's needed, where the gaps are. It's like she's approaching it very like a dramaturg as a research project. And it's amazing. And I love what she's doing. So way to go, Molly. You inspire me. Who is your trailblazer of the week, Haley? Yeah, Molly, go for it.
My trailblazer of the week is Miss Chloe Geller, who you might recognize the name from knowing her because she's fabulous, but also because she has written music for this podcast. Chloe is one of my brilliant collaborators. We're working on a musical called Fate together, along with the wonderful Julia Sonia Koifman. And Chloe is just absolutely eating it up right now. She is the music assistant on Floyd Collins on Broadway. And yeah, Chloe is just one of those people who has the hustle from the top of her head to the bottom of her toes. She just really goes after what she wants. And it's just always crushing it with getting so many jobs. And she just like makes these things happen for herself. I just really admire that about her. She's also super kind and funny and lovely, and I'm grateful to collaborate with her. She's a genius, and I feel lucky to get to make musicals with her.
Yeah, and she's a brilliant composer, too. Her music is gorgeous, including the music that she wrote for our theme song.
When I say she's a genius, yeah.
Yeah. Go on, Chloe Geller.
Yeah, love you, Chloe, if you're listening. And yeah, if you haven't heard her music, go check it out. She actually won the Write Out Loud contest a couple of years ago for her song Pity Party, which is out on YouTube with Taylor Louderman singing on it. So you can check that out.
Check it
we'll
out.
Link it in the show notes, maybe. Yeah.
Amazing.
So shout out to Chloe. Sending you love and admiration always.
Always. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Haley, I want to hype you up today, my friend, my collaborator. You're amazing. I love all the things you do. I want to hype you up specifically because thinking back to our amazing networking event that we threw, it was so cool to see you showing up for this project in that community space and just like being such an amazing representation of what we're trying to do here at Women in Theater. It was so good. You know that feeling that you get, maybe you know what I'm talking about, listeners, when you like see your spouse or someone you love shining and you see everyone around them just like watching them shine and taking them in. I was feeling that way at the networking event. I was just watching you shine and watching other people enjoy your light, and it was so beautiful.
That's so nice. That's really, really nice. Thank you for that. You're going to make me cry over you.
No.
Amy, I just want to hype you up for how you're showing up for your people, babe. You always do it, and you are so consistent about it, and yeah, you're just really good at identifying need and meeting it and doing it oftentimes without people having to ask. And then, you know, when they do ask, you're always kind of ready to take it on. And I love that about you, the way that you care for your people. It rocks.
Thank
and
you.
I feel lucky to get to have you in my life and as my collaborator. So
Right back at you,
Yay.
friend. Yay.
Yeah.
Hey, listeners, go take care of your people.
Take care of your people and take care of yourself, babe.
And take
it's
care
a,
of
it's a rough
yourself.
world out there. Go take a
Yeah.
nap. Go do something kind for yourself today.
Yeah.
Love you all. Take care of
Thank you
yourselves
for
this week. We
listening
will
and
see
watching.
you next time.
See you next
Yes.
time. We love you,
Bye.
listeners. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Women in Theater podcast. We're your hosts, Haley Goldenberg.
And Amy Andrews. If you like what you heard, subscribe and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen.
You can also follow us on social at Women in Theater Project to make sure you never miss an episode.
The music for this show is written by talented Women in Theater community member Chloe Geller.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Bye!